CEO's daughter asks, "Does my mom even love me?" Janitor's incredible response changed everything. Lily stood in the penthouse office, watching her mother stride across the room with the relentless authority of a shark in deep waters. The glass walls of the office reflected a world she felt disconnected from, a world of power, money, and influence that loomed over her like an impenetrable fortress. Each day she came to work alongside her mother, as if walking in the shadow of a giant. Her presence reduced to mere anonymity beneath the weight of glamorous ambitions and boardroom victories. Desperation gnawed at her insides, a hollow ache that intensified with every corporate success her mother celebrated while neglecting to acknowledge her own daughter's struggles. Sometimes Lily would stand on the edge of the bustling office floors, feeling like a ghost, trapped between the chaos of her mother's empire and the silence of her own heart. "Does my mom even love me?" she whispered to herself, the words barely escaping her lips but echoing louder than the clamor of ringing phones and impassioned pitches around her. In the evenings, after the fluorescent lights dimmed, the luxury of their sprawling New York home turned into an isolating prison. The sparkling decor could not mask the emptiness, nor the void of conversations that never happened. She was just a reflection, a fragment of her mother's life, painfully aware that the bond she yearned for was suspended in her mother's relentless pursuit of success. As she roamed the empty hallways, the sharp clicks of her heels echoed with every step she took. The expansive solitude pricked at her thoughts, unraveling layers of loneliness as she considered the mother she barely knew. Just then, Mr. Thompson, the janitor with rough hands and wise eyes, spotted her from the corner of his broom. He had seen the quiet despair resting on her brows, a familiar reflection of another story he had carried in his heart. One evening, after overhearing Lily's whispered cry, Mr. Thompson approached her, drawing her into a quiet nook behind the flickering lights. He shared his truth about estrangement, the regret of missed moments that painted his relationship with his own daughter in shades of grief. "Love often hides beneath the surface," he urged. "It's not always loud. Sometimes it's cloaked in messy realities and quiet sacrifices." Something flickered within Lily, igniting a spark of determination. She began to peel back the layers of her mother's life in her mind, the board meetings that blurred into midnight strategy sessions, the indifference of their luxurious dinners, and the relentless pressure of being perfect. With each realization, her understanding shifted from resentment to empathy. Could love lie beneath the burdens she once resented? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the content next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But as Lily tried to bridge that emotional chasm, reality constricted her heart. Friction-filled dinners devolved into silence, fraught with misunderstandings, and unaddressed pain simmered under the surface like an ever-growing storm. Each attempt to connect met walls, tightening like chains around her spirit. In a pivotal confrontation, her breath hitched as she faced her mother. Every ounce of unresolved tension filled the vast space between them like a thick fog. Would this be the moment their relationship shattered under the weight of neglect, or could it become something else entirely? As she gathered her thoughts, ready to reveal the truth she had unearthed, anxiety coiled within her. Timing, tone, and words became impossible hurdles, each caressing her frayed heart as it beat against her chest. Would they finally redefine love, or would the inferno of their expectations ignite separation? At that moment, everything hung in limbo, poised on the edge of possibility, leaving her trembling in the wake of dread and desperate hope. The moment lingered, heavy with unsaid words and unexpressed emotions. Lily trembled, holding back the tidal wave of frustration that threatened to drown her. What could she say that her mother had not heard before? As the air thickened with tension, she felt the prickle of tears on her eyelashes, blurring her vision, but she bit her lip to hold them back. "You're so caught up in work," Lily finally blurted, desperation fueling her voice. "It's like I'm in a different world from you. I don't even know who you are anymore." Her words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Her mother paused, the bustling momentum that usually defined her movements faltering just for a moment. Lily glimpsed through the brief shock etched on her mother's face, the flicker of recognition, of understanding, before it was masked by the usual facade of composure. "Lily, it's not that simple," she said, the natural defensiveness rising against her daughter's vulnerability. "Isn't it?" Lily shot back, the heat of indignation bubbling within her, fueled by the years of feeling unseen and unheard. "You've constructed this entire world without me, in the office and at home. What do you think it feels like to be on the outside watching you succeed while I'm just nothing?" As she spoke, something shifted in Lily. The confidence she had bottled up began to seep through her words. She had lived in the shadows too long, allowing her mother's ambition to overshadow her own dreams that had been stifled, barely able to breathe beneath the weight of familial expectations. For too long, she had defined herself by the reflection of her mother's accomplishments. Now, she was ready to step out of that shadow. Lily prepared to fight for her own space in this life, distancing herself from her mother's quest for validation. "I want to find my passion, Mom, but I can't do that if you won't even look at me." Her determination was bolstered by the realization that change, no matter how challenging, was possible. She wouldn't be defined by her mother's standards. Her mother's expression shifted to one of bewilderment, faltering as she weighed Lily's words against her own valid concerns. "I'm trying to build our future. This business, it's everything." But in that moment, Lily saw a crack in her mother's armor, a fleeting moment of vulnerability that hinted at weariness. Lily took a deep breath, rehearsing the words she'd longed to speak. "But at what cost? I'm here too. I've been trying to reach you." The inevitability of silence engulfed them once again, but Lily felt unmoored, her heart racing toward a newfound autonomy. She no longer wanted to be a mere afterthought in her mother's life. Driving that point home felt liberating and terrifying all at once. What if this confrontation fractured their relationship? Or perhaps it would be the key to unlocking a new foundation, one built on mutual understanding and respect. Yet as they stood there, suspended in turmoil, an unexpected knock echoed through the air, breaking the stifled atmosphere of their confrontation. The door opened to reveal an uninvited guest, her mother's assistant, a flurry of frantic energy. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been an urgent issue with the financial report. We need to discuss it immediately." Lily's heart sank as reality slammed back into focus, but the seed of resolve planted within her remained. Would the urgency of work always trump her attempts to connect? In that charged moment, the uncertainty loomed. Would their confrontation dissolve, or could it wait long enough for them to explore the depths of their emotions? With a mutual glance filled with unspoken tension, Lily steadied her breathing, aware of a defining choice resting on her shoulders, one she was ready to embrace. She wouldn't succumb to silence. She would return, not just to confront her mother, but to confront her own fears embedded in their relationship. And as the door closed behind the assistant, Lily knew she had reached a pivotal moment. She had summoned her courage. The time had come to seize her own narrative. Now the question loomed large. Would she summon enough strength to continue bridging the gap, or would she unravel before the storm of expectation once more? Lily sat in her room, the weight of the confrontation still pressing against her chest like an anvil. The air was stale, thick with uncertainty, and the digital clock on her nightstand ticked almost mockingly, the seconds dragging, each one a reminder of the unclaimed space in her life she was trying to navigate. Thoughts spiraled in her mind, wrestling with one another, echoing the voice of doubt she had come to resent. What came next?
thoughts of the urgent meeting flooded
back in. Would the assistant bring news that would change everything, or simply anchor her mother deeper into the grind? It was a stark reminder that she had to take action, no more waiting. She composed a mental plan, piecing together her next steps. She needed clarity to articulate her desires without the cloud of anger or impatience. But how could she do that when her mother lived in a world dictated by schedules and spreadsheets? Emboldened by her earlier expression of emotion, Lily decided to tackle her fears head-on. The uncertainty of their relationship, the feeling of being overshadowed, all culminated into an urge to discover her own identity. With a newfound determination, she picked up her phone, scrolling through the contacts until she found the person she needed to reach out to, a local art instructor who had once sparked inspiration within her. The reality of her artistic ambitions had lain dormant too long. Now it was time to breathe life into them. "Hi, Miss Harris. It's Lily. I was wondering if you have any openings for classes this summer." Her voice felt like a revelation, as if each word chipped away at molds that had bound her thus far. As they discussed available options, a flicker of excitement ignited her spirit. The thought of revisiting the canvas, losing herself in colors and strokes, reminded her of the passion she had almost relinquished. By the end of the call, she felt lighter, fueled by the idea of reclaiming a version of herself she had laid aside. But revitalizing her art didn't just appeal to her creativity. It opened an avenue for finding her voice. If she could forge this path for herself, construct a narrative rooted in her ambitions instead of her mother's legacy, she could not only confront her mother, but confront herself as well. She needed to forge a new identity, one not merely defined by familial expectations. Days passed, and with each art class, she discovered hidden attributes within herself, not just artistic talent, but an emerging clarity in her own thoughts and desires. She realized that the fear of rejection had eclipsed her self-worth for far too long. Unbeknownst to her, her confidence grew with each brushstroke, each vibrant hue she laid on the canvas signifying a step toward autonomy. One afternoon, as she finished a piece, a bold depiction of the chaos she felt about her relationship with her mother, she felt an urge to share it with her. Lily wanted to give her mother a tangible piece of her journey, a reflection of her growing independence. But the anxiety of this act was palpable. What if her mother dismissed it as a mere hobby? What if it became another point of contention? That dasher of expectation lingered as she thumbed through her phone, hesitating before texting her mother. "Mom, can you meet me this weekend? I have something to show you." The message lingered on the screen. Would she see the significance in what lay before her? The chaser of expectation momentarily gripped her again. She held the phone tightly, her heart racing as she prepared for whatever response would come next. As she contemplated these thoughts, the door creaked open, and her mother stepped into the room, ready to dissolve into discussion about work again. The moment felt charged, laden with potential, a pivot point where their emotions could either clash or connect meaningfully. And just like that, the foundation she'd hoped to build trembled on the brink of possibility. Would her mother recognize the bridge Lily was forming, or would professional priorities push her back into the shadows? Lily sat at her desk, fingers hovering above her phone. The seconds ticked by, and the anxiety coiling within her threatened to strangle her resolve. She replayed her mother's response in her mind, imagining variations tinged with urgency and detachment. "Busy now," or "not the time." Each scenario chipped away at the hope she was trying to nurture. The fleeting moment of connection when her mother walked through the door felt like sand slipping through her fingers, a reminder of how quickly familiarity can morph into estrangement. But there was no turning back. She had stepped onto the path of candid self-exploration. Determined to present her art to her mother, she had to confront the silence that had seeped into their relationship. Yet, as weekend approached, a new wave of uncertainty crashed over her. Would her mother see the fierceness and vulnerability embodied in the strokes of paint? Would her own artistic representation of their tumultuous bond elicit understanding, perhaps even admiration? The emotions surrendered to doubt clouded her purpose. This was more than just a piece of art. It was an invocation for empathy, an attempt to bridge the chasm that had widened over the years. Lily arrived at the cafe early, choosing a secluded corner table where she could prepare herself mentally. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but instead of drawing her in, it served as a reminder of her racing heart. How much had she projected her fears onto this encounter? In professing her artistry, she was simultaneously admitting her own vulnerabilities. The door swung open, and Lily's gaze snapped up. Her mother stepped inside, commands driving her stride, a stark contrast to the hesitation flooding Lily's approach. She forced a smile, hoping to mask the storm brewing inside her chest. 2 coffees, please, her mother ordered the barista with a quick, authoritative gesture that seemed to slice through the air. Moments later, she turned to Lily, arms crossed almost defensively. You sounded serious on the phone. What's this about? Lily took a deep breath. The air thickened with the weight of their unspoken words. I wanted to show you something. She pulled her phone out, fingers trembling as she retrieved a photo of her latest artwork. The vibrant colors seemed to spark against the muted background, a visual manifesto of her emotional landscape. Here it is, she said, pushing the phone towards. It's about us. An awkward silence enveloped them, stretching as her mother studied the image. Lily's heart drummed louder, matching the escalating tension in the air. Would her mother dismiss it as juvenile? Would she veil acknowledgement behind critique? This is interesting, her mother finally replied, her tone flat. But why make it so chaotic? The words sliced deeper than any dry critique. The chaos echoed Lily's inner tumult and the complexities of their relationship. It represents my feelings, she struggled to articulate. The struggle between how you see me and how I see myself. It's raw. Her mother's brows knit together in confusion, and for a fleeting moment, Lily thought she saw a flicker of recognition, maybe concern? But then it faded, replaced by a familiar set of expectations that suffocated anything resembling intimacy. Art is subjective, Lily, she said, her voice rigid. You need a spark, something more cohesive. Each word felt like a shackle binding her creativity. It struck her that this wasn't merely a conversation about art. It was about autonomy. How deeply did her mother understand her? Did she care to comprehend the chaos? Lily took another breath, forcing herself to look beyond despair. This moment was pivotal. She could still turn it into something meaningful. Mom, can you try to see more than just the chaos? There's something here worth exploring together. The challenge lay not just in her words, but in her resolve to face the emotional shadows that had clouded their past. Would her mother accept the invitation to traverse their uncharted territory, or would she retake the familiar route of detachment? As the clock on the wall ticked inexorably onward, Lily's heart pounded. She could either retreat to safety or dare to communicate her unfiltered self. The clarity she had sought became a haunting tension. The mother she longed to connect with, now a stranger masked in expectation. The moment hung delicately, a precipice teetering on the brink of either connection or calamity. What was her next move? Would she peel back the layers of her mother's facade and bare her truths? Or would this be just another cycle of silence? In that charged space between words, Lily prepared to grasp the opportunity to confront everything she had feared. The urgency to break free was palpable. What would come next? Would her mother truly meet her halfway, or was the divide too vast? Lily's heart raced as she observed the conflict etched on her mother's face. Time became a venomous adversary, sapping her resolve and complicating the air between them. Would daring to express herself compel her mother to finally put down her armor and engage? Or would it push her deeper into an impenetrable shell, rendering their fragile connection even more tenuous? Mom, she began, her voice steady despite the quivering of her insides. I'm not asking you to understand every brushstroke. Just to be present with me right now. The words lingered, heavy with expectation. Each syllable felt a declaration, an urgent plea for recognition. A flash of something, was it vulnerability, crossed her mother's features, but just as quickly it was obscured behind the facade of indifference. Lily, I don't have time for this abstract expressionism. There are more practical ways to deal with challenges in our lives. The dismissiveness stung, echoing years of simplified judgments cloaked in authority. Could her mother truly not grasp the significance of this moment? For Lily, this was not just about colors dancing on a canvas. It was about unveiling an identity sculpted in turmoil and hard-won resilience. She had fought hard to surface amidst the chaos, but it seemed her mother preferred the calm of conformity to the tide of authenticity. Frustration bubbled within her. It was time to confront the detachment directly. "You think that art is just a pastime," she challenged, "but it's more than that for me. It's my lifeline. This piece is screaming to be heard, just like me. Why must everything be so practical?" The cafe buzzed with chatter, other patrons oblivious to the pivotal confrontation at this small table. For a moment, her mother's expression softened, and Lily believed she saw a fracture in the armor. Yet her mother's lips tightened into a thin line, a clear signal that traditional defenses were locked back in place. "No one ever said life was easy, Lily," her mother replied, the warmth of maternal understanding dissipating rapidly. "You need to learn how to navigate this world focusing on outcomes, not feelings. That's what will keep you afloat." Each word crashed like waves upon her consciousness. Was her perspective too adolescent, too naive? Or was her mother's pragmatism a mask for her own fears, a way to shelter herself from the chaotic storms of love and connection? The internal tension muddling thoughts urged Lily to break free from the cycle established long ago. "You're looking at the problem all wrong," Lily pressed on, ignited with purpose. "It's not just about surviving, it's about living and experiencing, understanding. This chaos is part of my process. There's beauty in it, even if it doesn't align with your image of what success should look like." Lily's voice steadied as her conviction hardened. There was a profound realization that surged through her veins. This wasn't merely an artistic discussion, but a plea for recognition and respect. If her mother could not appreciate this, she did not merely risk losing a potential ally, but the very foundation upon which she sought to build her identity. Her mother's eyes flickered, capturing something within her daughter's passionate defense. It was as if a new dialogue hung in the air, waiting for the right moment to burst forth. Lily felt that if she could maintain this intensity, if she could keep that fire ignited, perhaps her mother would be compelled to unearth the truths hidden beneath their years of unmet expectations. As another silence enveloped them, Lily steeled herself. She realized that the challenge wasn't just about them, it was a test of her own resilience. She could emerge stronger, even if her mother remained steadfast in her indifference. Every word she spoke was a step toward defining who she was becoming, an artist, a woman, and her own person. Determined to hold the line, she leaned closer, the pulse of her art raging within her. "Let's talk about where we go from here, Mom. If I can share my chaos, can you at least try to step into it with me? Can we redefine what success means for both of us?" The tension hung heavily, the stakes suddenly more personal than ever. Would her mother reach across the chasm that separated them, or would that distance remain an unbridgeable abyss? As they continued to sit, the cafe around them faded, leaving just the echo of their unspoken thoughts swirling within the space like swirling paint on a canvas. And in that moment, Lily braced herself. The time had come to face not just her mother, but everything standing in the way of her own emergence. What revelations lay ahead, unwrapped from layers of expectation? Would understanding blossom, or would she be left to navigate the storm alone? Lily felt the weight of her mother's silence. Moments stretched long, as if the air itself thickened with unexpressed emotions. Her heart pounded fiercely against the restraint of uncertainty. Churning within her was a storm of questions. Was she brave enough to push the boundaries further, or was this engagement only bringing her mother to a darker, defensive place? The cafe's usual hum faded into an almost unbearable quiet, turning their small island of confrontation into a microcosm of their entire relationship. Had years of crafting her artistic persona only led to this singular moment of stark emotional scrutiny? She took a deep breath, grounding herself. "Mom," she said softly, "I know I can't change how you see things overnight, but I'm trying to find my way. I need your support. Isn't that what love is?" The fragility of her voice betrayed her, as it trembled slightly, as if seeking reassurance from the very person who so often left her feeling abandoned. Her mother stiffened, lips pressed together in contemplation. For a fleeting moment, Lily thought she might see her defenses shatter, might feel the warmth of connection. Yet the moment passed, slipping through her fingers like an uncatchable dream. "I've worked hard to provide for you, Lily," her mother finally replied, a practiced coolness creeping back into her tone. "Love is not about coddling each other with affirmations. It's about teaching responsibility, about ensuring you are equipped to handle life. You need to focus on your future." A bitter taste curled around her heart. Was her mother's understanding of love so fundamentally different from her own? The statement felt more like a reprimand, an echo of years of conditioning that had tethered Lily's self-worth to her mother's expectations. "Mom, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but can't you just be proud of who I am?"
"Right now?" Lily asked, the fire within her reigniting. She wanted to scream for the recognition she longed for, both from her mother and within herself. The art she created was not just a distraction. It was her lifeline, her narrative unfolding against a backdrop of misunderstandings and disappointment. Was she holding on to a concept of love that was never meant for her? Or was there a version of her mother still buried beneath layers of expectation? Even the thought of discovering more of her mother's fears gave her pause. Perhaps understanding didn't just lie in successful outcomes, but in shared vulnerabilities. Suddenly, the realization struck her. If she wished to penetrate the wall of indifference, she must be willing to expose her own fears as well. "I'm scared, Mom. Scared of not being good enough, of not living up to what you want. But isn't that something we can work on together?" The words hung in the air like a gasp, fragile yet revelatory. A flicker of surprise crossed her mother's features, as if she were finally confronting the truth underneath years of frustration, a truth buried deep within her own heart. Would this be a bridge toward understanding, or merely another source of conflict? Lily leaned in, her desire for connection palpable. Can we meet each other in the messiness? Can we redefine success together, not as separate identities, but as a family? A glimmer of conflict danced in her mother's eyes, something, maybe regret, maybe confusion, flickering just beneath the surface. This moment could bend the course of their relationship, shifting the dimensions of their conversation from mere obligation to openness. But before her mother could respond, the weight of unsaid words settled heavy between them once more. Would she take the leap into the chaos alongside her daughter? Would she verbalize the vulnerability that perhaps shamed her? As Lily awaited her mother's response, she sensed a shift within herself. The journey ahead would test her strength, but would also empower her to break free of the chains imposed by expectation. Each pulse of her heart rang with determination, to carve a path where both could grow, despite the uncertainty of where it may lead. And just as the first glimmer of hope ignited within their silence, Lily felt something click inside her. Maybe this was the beginning of reshaping their narrative. The realization felt almost as tangible as the paint on her easel. "What if," she whispered, eyes narrowing in focus, "what if I show you my next piece, and we discuss it? Maybe in the colors and chaos, you might see me. The challenge hung there, bold and inviting. Could they navigate the complexities of each other's worlds, or were the barriers too entrenched to break down? It was a bold step forward, but Lily felt ready to fight for her authenticity. As her mother looked down, caught in the web of her own thoughts, the air crackled with unspoken potential. Would this artful charade lead to genuine discovery, or would it highlight their differences even more starkly? The clatter of cups and silverware returned as the cafe buzzed to life again, but for Lily, the world outside that table faded into insignificance. It was as if the walls of the cafe had thinned to transparency, allowing only the tension binding her and her mother to echo through the air. The silence lingered, thickening with each heartbeat, amplifying her anticipation. "What do you think?" Lily dared to push, her urgency bubbling beneath her composed facade. "You always tell me to focus, to find my strength. Showing you my art, maybe it's the first step?" Her mother's brow furrowed, calculating the implications of such a proposition. Would revealing her vulnerability through art crack her carefully maintained stoicism? Lily craved recognition, not only as an artist, but as her mother's daughter, longing to bridge chasms cultivated by divergent perspectives. How could they navigate the minefield of their relationship if they both clung to their opposing beliefs? Yet something deeper stirred in her, an uncomfortable gnawing realization. Perhaps it wasn't just about her mother's acceptance, but about her own unwillingness to accept her reality. What lay beyond her mother's expectations if she withdrew from the comparison altogether? "Art might seem trivial to you, Mom," Lily continued, her voice steadier now, "but it's everything to me. Each stroke is a piece of my truth, my struggle. I'm inviting you into my world." The flicker of hesitation in her mother's eyes was unmistakable. Could that be curiosity, or merely the hesitation of a woman unaccustomed to stepping outside her tightly scripted roles? The question swirled in Lily's mind like a brush dipped in paint, awaiting the canvas of reality. "I know you think I should pursue something more traditional," Lily pressed onward, resisting the urge to fold under the weight of her mother's gaze. "But what does that say about us? Must we confine our achievements to society's standards? Isn't it time we define success on our own terms?" Her mother's lips tightened, conveying a confluence of emotions. A tremor of uncertainty rippled through Lily, amplifying her desire to break down that wall further. If she was to grow into the artist she aspired to be, she needed to confront her mother's reservations, not only with logic, but with the passion that fueled her creativity. "What if I fail?" she added, her heart racing at the raw truth of that fear. "What if my art doesn't resonate? Doesn't that matter too? It's terrifying to think of pouring my soul into something that may not be accepted, especially by you." For a moment, her mother's eyes softened, the walls that surrounded them crumbling just a bit. It was enough to plant a seed of hope. Specialists spoke about the transformative power of art, how it could challenge perceptions and provoke reflection. But could her mother truly embrace this part of Lily? Could she relinquish her rigid parameters to allow her daughter the space for authentic exploration? Perhaps. "Showing my piece isn't just about the creation," Lily reasoned. "It's about revealing layers you don't see. Can we confront the discomfort together? It's where growth often lies. And isn't that what you want for me?" A shift reverberated through the space they occupied, a quest for understanding hanging palpably in the air. Despite the enormity of what lay ahead, individuality could slowly emerge from the chaos of their conflict. Yet, as those words dissipated into the atmosphere, another weight settled in Lily's chest. Would her mother ever step beyond her defined version of love? Each step needed to be navigated with caution if they were to approach this new dialogue about acceptance. "Mom," Lily pressed, the resolve within her now almost fraying at the edges, "I need you to try, not just for me, but for us.
to define our relationship rather than let it be defined by silence. And in that moment, a new drive ignited within her, a commitment not only to her art, but to the evolution of their relationship. What lay beyond this conversation was a tumultuous journey, fraught with possible relapses into their old ways, yet essential for healing. As she awaited her mother's response, she realized this wasn't just a discussion about art. It was the beginning of redefining love, a nagging voice within her whispering that the journey ahead would require greater courage than she had anticipated. Would this be the moment that shifted the narrative, creating a new foundation for connection? In the grip of that silence, filled with both hope and uncertainty, she understood that the answers would not come easily. But perhaps, just perhaps, this was the first bold stroke on her canvas, a fragmented whisper of the masterpiece that lay ahead. The seconds stretched, taut and electric, as Lily's heart thrummed with an urgency that seemed to reverberate against the cafe's surfaces. Her mother's silence felt like an abyss, pulling Lily into a churning sea of uncertainty. The air was almost palpable with their unspoken words, thick with the weight of years spent navigating an unyielding distance. "I'm afraid," her mother finally broke the silence, her voice a mere whisper, as if the admission itself was too heavy to bear. The revelation landed in the space between them like a stone, dropped into still water, sending ripples outward. Confession illuminating the dark corners of their conversation. Lily's mind raced. It was a start, a thread upon which they could weave new understanding. "Mom, fear doesn't have to paralyze us. It can guide us if we let it," she suggested, arching toward her. A mixture of empathy and newfound determination welled up inside her. "What are we afraid of? What would it mean for us?" Her mother met her questioning gaze, her expression shifting as if to unearth an ancient wisdom buried beneath layers of expectation. "If I let you in, what if I don't know how to respond? What if I can't understand you?" An unsettling thought flickered. In Lily's mind, her mother's hesitance echoed her own fear of vulnerability. "We may not have to understand everything. Maybe we just have to listen." This was uncharted territory. They had danced around these issues for so long that directly confronting them felt like stepping onto a precarious tightrope above an abyss. Lily swallowed hard, the gravity of the moment grounding her resolve. "Mom, every time I paint, every time I create, I feel this wave of honesty washing over me. The fear of rejection is there, yes, but so is the exhilaration of being true, both to myself and the world. That's what I want to share with you, the truth of who I am." At that moment, a flicker of comprehension danced across her mother's eyes, causing Lily's hope to surge like the tide. Perhaps this conversation wasn't leading them directly to resolution, but rather to a deeper questioning of their relationship, a profound unraveling that required dedication from both sides. Lily shifted slightly, leaning closer. "Can we take this journey together? I'm willing to show you my art, but I need you to meet me halfway." Her mother's shoulders drooped slightly, a submission to a reality she had long deferred. "I've built this wall for so long, thinking it would protect us both," she admitted, choking back emotion. "Yet here we are, each with walls of our own. What if our failures are the edges of a bigger picture?" Lily considered this moment as a pivotal point, a potential kernel from which growth would inevitably blossom. "Then let's paint that bigger picture together," she encouraged, her voice energizing the air again. "It might be imperfect, but it will be ours." The urgency of the moment heightened their exchange, shifting the atmosphere in the cafe. It felt lighter somehow, as if the tension she had carried for too long had started to evaporate, leaving space for something new, hope, understanding, perhaps even love. As they lingered in this new terrain, Lily felt an internal shift, like the gears of her psyche grinding down old conflicts. It was liberating to contemplate her mother stepping beyond her scripted roles, allowing a realization that the pursuit of truth didn't come with a manual. Yet, just as comfort began to settle in, another thought flickered through her mind with stark clarity. If acceptance was to blossom between them, she would need to recognize that the journey could lead to unexpected, painful truths about herself as well. Mom, before we dive deeper, I realize something. I need to be ready to confront my own insecurities too. What if I'm not strong enough for this, or even for the exhibition? Before her mother could answer, the realization that the echo of their fears could drown their efforts loomed ominously. Highlighting her own vulnerabilities felt threatening. The deeper layers of what lay ahead began to seep in, an understanding that they couldn't just paint over the conflicts, they had to confront them head-on. As they both sat there, breathing in the delicate interplay of vulnerability and courage, Lily knew that this was just the beginning. The journey ahead was fraught with pain, hope, and new definitions of love. But there was also the dawning realization that a masterpiece was meant to be created, not merely observed. Together or apart, we have to embrace the discomfort, Lily finally said, the words settling like a line drawn across a page. It's time to confront this head-on. Can we face it? With that challenge on the table, a new weight hung in the air, brimming with both promise and trepidation. Would they be able to face their truths together without retreating into defensiveness? The answer felt tantalizingly close, yet ultimately elusive, a striking contrast to the budding clarity that now anchored Lily's heart. The cafe around them faded into the background, a mere tableau to the storm brewing between Lily and her mother. A slow pulse of realization dawned on Lily, a merging of self-awareness and the realization that true connection demanded authenticity, a bartering of truths with both hands open. This conversation was not just about getting to know one another. It was about dismantling the emotional structures that had kept them apart. "Mom," Lily began again, a tremor in her voice, "what if we take turns? If you share a fear, I can share one too. Maybe by illuminating our shadows, we can find a way to understand each other better." The metaphor of sharing became not merely an idea, but a lifeline that set a new direction. Her mother hesitated, clearly grappling with the vulnerability that lay ahead. "I've always felt that sincerity might crack us wide open," she said, her brow furrowing in a reflection of the tumult within her. "What if the things we feared reveal something irreparable?" Lily's heart sank momentarily at the idea that honesty could fracture their last semblance of order. Yet within that pit dwelled a flicker of resolve. "Or," she countered, "what if it pieces us back together in a way we never thought possible? If I know where you stand, maybe I can learn to trust you again." The intensity of her words hung between them, daring her mother to reach beyond her apprehensions. After a pained silence that felt like an eternity, Lily saw her mother's resolve waver, a gradual acceptance within her resistance. "All right," her mother finally whispered, the air thick with decision. "I'll start. I'm afraid of losing you, of never knowing you. It's as if I've been standing still while you grew into someone I barely recognize." The admission ruptured the dam of pretense that surrounded them. Lily clenched her fists tightly underneath the table, fighting the urge to withdraw, to deflect. "But I've felt lost too. You were always busy with expectations and ambitions, and in the midst, I felt invisible." She could feel the heat of tears rising, the raw truth of their shared history exposing wounds she hadn't dared to articulate before. The waves of emotion pulled at her, yet a sense of liberation washed over her. "I want you to see my art, but I can't ask you to embrace it if you aren't ready to embrace me," she added, conscious that this was a pivotal moment. "I painted the contours of my life in secrecy, Mom. I've been yearning to be seen, but also terrified that you might see what I truly am, a person molded by my fears and my hopes," she said, each word vibrating with the weight of her truth. Her mother's expression softened momentarily, the flicker of pain mixing with a dawning warmth. "I think I've painted you too, but from a distance, with only the ideas of who I wanted you to be," she replied, almost incredulously. Lily's chest felt lighter as fear began to dissolve into understanding.
Then let's continue the painting. Our brushstrokes can illuminate our darkest corners, but we have to be willing to wield those brushes together, she urged, her determination ignited. The cafe, once an arena of apprehension, transformed into a sanctuary of hope as layers of self-imposed barriers began to dissolve in their exchange. They had opened a door to mutual acceptance, but the path ahead was fraught with questions. Would they be prepared for the revelations that awaited them? Each step could uncover a part of themselves they might not be ready to confront. Next time, her mother said tentatively, maybe we can show each other our projects, your art and what I've created in my own way. Something shifted in the air, a burgeoning promise that felt solid yet dangerously fragile. As they prepared to leave the cafe, a new resolve cocooned Lily. Her mother's initiative wasn't just pivotal, it was a sign that they were both willing to engage in the tumult of discovery. Yet, as they stood, the questions gnawed at her. Was she truly ready to confront the shadows beneath her canvas? And what if, upon revealing too much, they both uncovered painful truths that forever altered their relationship? With the shifting dynamics of their bond, Lily knew the next chapter was bound to challenge her further. The exhibition loomed on the horizon, promising to unearth not just her art, but the very essence of who she had become. Would her mother stand with her, or would their shared journey lead them to unspeakable fractures? As she took her first steps away from the cafe, a swirling mix of anticipation and dread gripped her heart. The weeks flew by, each day marked by burgeoning anticipation as Lily prepared for her exhibition. Each stroke of her brush took on more meaning, a testament to the intricate dance of her emotions and her evolving relationship with her mother. For the first time, she was crafting her identity not just as an artist, but as a daughter, navigating a complex landscape woven of love, expectation, and reconciliation. With each practice session on her pieces, she felt a cathartic release from fears that had previously held her captive. It was as if every layer of paint was a message to herself, reminding her that vulnerability could indeed transform into strength. This newfound conviction resonated deeply within her, marking a contrast to the girl who once felt invisible in her mother's grand shadow. One day, as she perfected the final touches on her most ambitious piece, a chaotic interpretation of the highs and lows of their relationship, she realized it symbolized not just the struggles they faced, but also the resilience that came with confronting those difficulties. In the throes of creation, she began to feel she was not just revealing her story, but inviting her mother to be a part of it. As the exhibition day approached, Lily dared to hope. Opening night was just around the corner, and her mother had agreed to attend, promising to come not as an authority figure, but as a supportive presence for her daughter. The stakes felt monumental. This would be the culmination of everything they had navigated together, and a chance to redefine their relationship. Finally, the evening arrived. The gallery buzzed with energy, filled with art lovers and friends who marveled at the kaleidoscope of emotions captured on each canvas. For Lily, it felt like a liberation, transcending the confines of her upbringing, a chance to step into the spotlight, not just as her mother's daughter, but as an artist in her own right. As she stood in front of her most poignant piece, a swirling tempest of colors that reflected both chaos and clarity, she felt her breath hitch. This was it, the moment she had envisioned where all her vulnerability would be laid bare. When her mother walked into the gallery, time seemed to still. Meeting her gaze was electric, igniting a flicker of hope as they stood, two figures poised on the precipice of love and reconnection. "Lily, this is beautiful," her mother finally said, her voice wavering with sincerity. The genuine warmth infused Lily's heart with a buoyancy that lifted her spirits. "Thank you, Mom," Lily replied, summoning all the courage she had found in this process. "This piece tells our story, how we've struggled and fought against the noise of expectations.
I wanted to show you that I've found strength in understanding ourselves and each other." As they walked together through the gallery, observing the carefully crafted narratives, Lily felt an exhilarating rush of acceptance, both from others and from her mother. Observing how their presence seemed to shift alongside each artwork, she sensed a deepening connection forming, as if each piece reopened forgotten pathways to their relationship. In the quiet corner of the gallery, her mother gestured towards a painting that resonated poignantly with their own journey. "What do you see?" she asked, her eyes searching for Lily's insight. "It's like a barrier breaking," Lily said, realizing as she spoke that their moment of transformation had arrived. "The colors are jarring, but from the turmoil emerges beauty. It represents how we've met our fears." Her mother nodded, slowly, absorbing Lily's revelation. "I think I've seen only a fraction of that beauty until now. Perhaps I've hidden behind my work too much, thinking it would protect us. I didn't realize the complete chaos I've created in my pursuit of success took a toll on us." Silence enveloped them, a shared moment of understanding bridging the gulf that had long divided their relationship. Lily could see the weariness etching lines on her mother's face, the vulnerability reflected in her eyes. And in that moment, clarity emerged for both of them. Lily felt a rush of courage echo within her. "What if we redefine love together?" she asked softly, allowing raw emotions to wrap around her words. "Can we meet in the middle? A commitment to understanding and striving for a deeper connection?" Her mother's nod was imperceptibly small at first, but it grew into a decisive affirmation. "Let's begin again, together," she replied, a whisper full of promise. That night marked not only the celebration of Lily's artistic achievements, but the dawn of a new chapter in their relationship, an authentic exploration of love reshaped through honesty and vulnerability. In a crowded gallery buzzing with applause, Lily felt buoyed by a sense of fulfillment at the realization that her artistic expression had not been just a pursuit, but a pathway toward renewal. As conversations flowed around her, she held her mother's hand, grateful for the continuous evolution of their bond. And as the gallery lights dimmed and the last conversations faded into the background, Lily stood with confidence and pride. She was no longer defined by someone else's dreams or shadows, but celebrated as herself, an artist with a story unfolding, ready to embrace the challenges and joys ahead. Now was the time to share this revelation far and wide, to inspire others also tethered by expectations, reminding them that the journey towards self-recognition starts with unveiling the deepest layers of their souls. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.